Well, the federal Liberal Party is holding crunch talks this week over its position on net zero. There will be 3 such meetings, the first of which begins today. Joining us live is the Assistant Citizenship Minister, Julian Hill. You're on your own today, Julian, but presumably you'll be watching things with a big bucket of popcorn.
Well, actually, no, I've got a busy day. I'm getting on with the job. I've got a number of community events in my electorate. I'm visiting a large local GP clinic to mark their transition to 100% fully bulk billing. The Liberal Party are busy hating on each other, as you know. It's not just me, it's journalists that have said for months now you can't walk down a corridor in Parliament House without them openly bitching about their colleagues. So I'll leave their machinations to them. I'm getting on with the job.
OK, let's get to some of the Liberal arguments that I'd like your response to this morning. Is the focus on targets which you are pursuing misguided because you aren't going to reach any of them?
Well, the report I saw this morning suggested that we're on track to, I think, to get to 42% of the 43% target for 2030, and there's still a way to go. But look, I'll make a couple of points. This is almost the 25th anniversary of this ridiculous argument that's been tearing the coalition to pieces. They've ripped multiple leaders, 3 prime ministers to bits over climate change and energy wars. For your listeners, for people in my community sitting at home, understandably and rightly pissed off about high power prices and their power bills sitting in front of them, I'd make this really important point, that the single biggest reason that power prices in our country are higher than they should be, frankly, is because of a decade or more of underinvestment in new supply. It's not rocket science, right? We need more supply to come on as the economy grows and demand for power grows. But what we saw under the former government for a decade was 22 different energy policies. They couldn't agree on one of them. 24 of Australia's 28 coal-fired power stations closed. No solution, no supply. And if you're the private sector, Pete, imagine you or your listeners sitting there with $10 billion to invest. No person in their right mind is going to invest that kind of capital in new supply, whether it's, I don't know, transport or energy, or it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, think about it, coal, gas, renewables, whatever. If you don't know what the rules are going to be in 5 and 10 years, you're not going to invest. And that's the policy failure. That's the policy failure that Australians are still paying the price for. So, frankly, I don't think most of your listeners give 2 hoots about Susan Ley or the Liberal Party's travails or their Mean Girls episodes or whatever, play they want to cast this week. I think they rightly care about what is the government of Australia doing, what are we putting in place to moderate power prices, and renewables are the cheapest form of new power. This is the insane bit about it. It's not just emissions. What's good for the economy? These guys are selling out regional Australia because it's regional Australia that has the most to gain in the transition to renewable
not
energy.
Everyone can afford that. Getting your solar panels, I've said this a few times, and batteries, it is expensive for those who can afford it. There's a lot of people who can't. But still on renewables, and as we saw this week, Julian, a $1 billion Waratah super battery in New South Wales now faces a year-long delay after a major fault. So does that not show how uncertain the rush to renewables is?
Well, no, with respect, Pete. I mean, that's one isolated project.
Pretty big one.
Record levels of new investment. Well, yeah, but come on, I mean, be realistic. This is a massive transition. This is one of the biggest industrial undertakings that our nation has faced. This is part of the global shift, the global trend towards renewable energy. There will be ups and downs. There will be speed humps on the way. But out of every developed OECD country, I say this very directly to everyone listening, out of every developed country in the world, Australia has the best renewable energy resources of any country. We have the most to gain for our economy in the transition. And so, sure, you can point to one battery, you can point to one wind farm. We could also point to multiple coal-fired power stations that have broken down, that are creaking. I mean, that happens in any big energy system. But the transition is underway. It's not leadership, what we're seeing from the Liberal Party.
Speaking of $1 billion, do you think COP31 should be held in Adelaide, or should we give it up to Turkey?
Yeah, look, there's 3 reasons why the government is putting forward the bid to host the next COP in Adelaide. Number one, it is an economic development thing in its own right. Just the same logic as big sporting events. You subsidise an event and you stimulate the economy. So there's a big return on investment there for tourism, for the economy, for people who stay and do other things in Australia, like any major world event. The second reason is it's the world's biggest trade fair, and you bring decision makers people who allocate billions of dollars of capital to look at the things we're trying to get investment into in our country, like renewable energy, or that we're trying to sell, like critical minerals and technology. So it's a damn big trade fair and a good thing for the economy and the future of our economy.
Right, so you think...
The third reason is, you know, we say we're part of the Pacific family, Pete. I mean, this is existential for our Pacific neighbours and friends, and we can't say we're the big brother for the region, their words that they often use about us, without being serious about taking that role. And so we're honouring the commitment. We said we'd bid to host the next COP, and that's exactly what we're doing.
OK, so you think the $1 billion price tag that's been quoted is a bill worth paying?
Well, I think like any big major world event, there's an economic return on investment, there's a massive trade fair opportunity from bringing those people to Australia and economic returns that will flow. People can, you know, run the numbers and the arguments either way, but you can't just focus with these things on the costs. There's also a significant benefit like any big activity.
All right, yeah, as we've been reporting today, the Premier's Malinowskis, he's certainly behind it, as he would as the state's Premier.
He's
but
right
Julian,
in.
Yeah, Julian, good to see you. See you next week. We're off to a break. Coming up, the Liberal Party